But here I have with us today is Dr. Sean Israel. And Mr. Israel actually is an author, and he has put together a book called The Principal Warrior. How are you, Mr. Israel? Welcome to Carter's Council.
The Warrior Principle. But
I'm sorry, The Warrior Principle.
Thank you.
And it says The New Leadership for Urban Schools.
Right.
So what I want to do is show this to everyone, and they can take a good look at this. Mr. Israel, what exactly, where can they find this book, first of all?
You can find this book everywhere that education books are sold. It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble, and a host of other websites. But you can also find it from my personal website, which is EPBSconsultants.com.
All right, so tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
I'm Dr. Sean Israel. I'm an educator. I'm a husband, father of 4, and I am very passionate about school leadership and school administration. And I, in particularly, find a very a niche in urban education, because I think that that's the most underserved area in terms of having materials, books, and resources that not only teachers and school administrators can use to do their jobs more effectively and better serve the population of students and families that they come in contact with.
All right, so what possessed you to write this book?
Basically, I felt that a lot of principals coming out of graduate school, they're not exposed to the realities of the position, especially when they find themselves working in the urban public school district. A lot of times the books that we read in graduate school and the articles and things of that nature, they don't prepare us for what is really like once you start working in an urban school. And so since I saw that there was a void in this area, I thought that I can use my scholarship, expertise, and knowledge to put together a leadership book that was directly in tune to the realities of the position, and also give school administrators potent strategies that they can use to help combat some of the ills that they see while working in the urban school district.
Okay, so without giving everything away in the book, give us a nugget. Give us an example. What do you see determines what makes a principal effective or not effective? What are some of the factors?
Some of the factors, I would say first, one of the most important factors is that urban school principals has to learn, have a good understanding of the school's culture that they're working in. They can't just assume that just because they're the principal that everybody's going to, do what they say and follow their initiatives. They have to understand the current culture of the school, and then by understanding the current culture, it will inform your decision making on what to do and how to move the school forward. And I think that a lot of things that you learn in graduate school about, school culture, some of them applies, but a lot of them don't. And so what I did is put together, and the reason why I call the book The Warrior Principle, because when you look at all of the factors that urban school principals have to go through, when you talk about competition from charter schools, you talk about disgruntled parents, you talk about high stakes testing, low performing students, high turnaround from employees, low teacher retention, and you name it, the list goes on. It's like you're actually going to war every day, fighting these different forces. And so I thought the warrior principle was applicable, because you have to have a warrior's mentality in order to deal with a lot of the things that you would encounter. And so the first, main characteristic that a urban school principal should have is to have an understanding of the current situation and current school culture, and not try to apply different things that they've read and what's going on in other schools, and really be in the moment and understand what that school is really like from a cultural perspective, and then use that information to inform his or her decision making and moving forward.
Okay, so you mentioned low scores and standardized test scores as a problem, and in most urban school districts, that's what you're facing. So if you're coming into a school that is priority, and for those of you who are just listening, there are different levels. There's priority schools, which is that all subgroups, whether it be African American, Asian, white, are suffering or not making the standardized scores in which the state has set as proficient. Then you also have a focus where you may have one or two subgroups that are not making it. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Israel, those are the most characteristics of an underperforming school, right, or an urban school.
Right.
So How much time does an urban school principal have to turn the results around in the school?
Well, that's very subjective because it just depends on the school district that you're working in. Some school districts they want microwave results, and if you don't meet those results, they'll get rid of you and bring somebody else in, which I think that's the wrong way to do it. You need to have a principal to have some time so he or she can plant a solid foundation, and they can build upon that foundation and change some of the negative things that was going on and implement some positive things.
How much time do you recommend?
I recommend any good principal worth a grain of salt can see positive changes as early as year 2. All right, but realistically by year 3, and definitely by year 5. By year 5, you should see significant changes. But definitely, on average, 3 years is what I would say in order to turn a failing school into a successful one.
Okay, so Baltimore City and Prince George's County in Maryland ranked 23rd and 24th respectively, and that's last and next to last. And so they have the highest priority schools and focus schools, and they are urban school districts. What would you say that because they've been 23rd and 24th, and they've been this way for over 25 years, and longer, what would you say to the superintendent how they would be able to begin to turn the school system around?
Right. Well, that too is a very loaded question, okay, because there's a broader answer that I would speak from if I was the superintendent of the school districts that you just mentioned. But since we're talking about the principalship, all right, and the Warrior Principal book, I'm going to just narrow my answer down from a school building principal perspective. And I think when you talk about achievement, you need to focus on a couple of different things. And these things are typically missed when you talk about poor and failing schools. All right, the first thing you have to have is alignment, okay? And when I speak of alignment, I'm talking about the standards and the objectives that students see on these standardized tests. These are the same things that teachers have to teach so students can see them in the classroom. And usually when you have a poor test scores, there's also a disalignment in that area. So this disalignment is normally caused by usually 2 factors, okay? You have teachers who they're following a curriculum that could be outdated, and the curriculum doesn't match what's going on that's going to be covered on those tests. Or, and this is the biggest thing that you see in a lot of urban schools, you see teachers that don't have a curriculum at all, and they're basically just piecing things together according to what they think students should learn, okay? And when they doing this piecemeal type of teaching, you miss a lot of things. So you have students that are possibly exposed to different materials, and they could possibly be even getting good grades. But then when they sit down and take that standardized test, it's a misalignment, and then therefore scores are low that way.
Okay.
Let me interject this one piece real quick, and this is important. The second piece is, in terms of making sure that test scores are right, is the principal's involvement in classroom and making sure that the instructional delivery is on point. A lot of times principals aren't visible in the classroom. They're not making their classroom visits. They're not giving teachers regular feedback. And therefore, if the principal's in that classroom on a regular basis, they can see what's going on and make sure that the instructional delivery is impactful. Now, when I talk about impactful instructional delivery, I'm talking about instruction that engages students in the learning process. Too often, you have misaligned curriculum, and then you have teachers who teach from one particular way. They overuse worksheets. They overuse end-of-chapter review questions. They overuse guided practice. They overuse lecturing. And these things don't fully engage students. And matter of fact, over the course of a school year, if they keep doing this, say take lecturing for example, if they stand in front of their overhead projectors and they lecture every day, the students' attention span and level of engagement decreases with every class period they go to. And so they're not learning the information, it's not sticking into their long-term memory, and then when it comes time for them to take the test, they don't do well. So as the principal, you need to make sure not only that is the curriculum aligned and with the standards and objectives to the standardized test, but also you have to be in the classroom visible. You have to monitor what's going on. You have to work with that teacher, give them regular feedback, and then from that observations, you see what's going on in the classrooms. You use that information, and then you form your professional development around those particular things that you're seeing in the classroom. So then the professional development is directly related to the deficiencies that teachers need in the classroom, and then over time these things become interconnected, and then you uplift the overall students' engagement, you uplift the instructional delivery, and you make a greater impact that way. And that's what the Warrior Principle talks about in detail.